How is it being a parent? I mean, both of you guys are entrepreneurs, really.
Right.
How is it like being a full-time parent and also a full-time entrepreneur now? So like, how long have you guys been like together? Like, was that always like that or?
No, it didn't. So I want to say I was an entrepreneur most of my life. Like even, maybe not at the level that it is now, like with everything I got going on, but still it was always like I had to go out and make something out of nothing, you know? So we met, I graduated 2011. And I was doing like the community college for like a year, bro. But automatically, I already knew, like, you know what, this
same for you.
Like, I'm thinking about haircuts. So,
were you barbering already at that time?
I think I was just picking it up barely. The funny thing is, like, my senior project, one of them was we had to do a business, and I said, okay, I'm just gonna do a shop, and then like that's how that started. And then I just kept going, got more stuff, took it a little more serious, and then everything changed when I finally committed to actually saying, okay, I'm gonna just, kind of be the black sheep almost, because at the time, you guys know how it is. For the most part, the only blueprint we really have, especially as Latinos, is like you got to go to school and become a doctor.
Whatever they tell us.
Right. So you almost feel like you got to fill those shoes. So I had to almost convince both of them, like, like, hey, I'm going to take this route. And even though, like, low-key they said no, like, don't leave the school, I still did it, bro. So taking that jump and even not listening to your parents sometimes, So that's when I went to barber school. I got my license pretty quick. But I was in the garage for a minute, so I was already doing that. My wife, I met her. She had several jobs. She worked at Applebee's. She worked at like Skechers Warehouse. She worked at the bank. So she had that financial background. And that's like when she was already doing better. And then, but she wasn't happy at the end of the day. So she had this YouTube thing going on the side, but it was almost like a secret. So then I said, man, why don't you pursue it? But, it's also that doubt too, bro. I mean, for herself or maybe even from her family at times. But then she just jumped the gun, and as soon as we got married, bro, she just quit. We went to an apartment, and she was full-time YouTube. So that's when the real entrepreneurship started.
Yeah, burn the boats. You just keep going.
How old were you guys when you guys got married?
I was 22. She's a year and a half older, so I think she was already 24, maybe 23.
So you were young.
I was young, yeah. But I went through my growing pains early, I was partying from like 16 to 20, so I was already like done with that part of my life.
Take that next step.
And then she was entering that part of her life. Yeah. So then I was there to support, to hold her hair when she threw up. So all that was happening. And then, I think we were pretty much on the same page, which is important in a relationship, So everything happened quick, bro. I mean, from 23, I opened my shop the following year after we got married.
So you opened your first shop when you're 24?
I want to say, 23, 24, yeah. So, like, that, from there up until now, like, it's like, damn, everything just happened quick. Every year was, like, growth, So, from both of us, and then as a family, obviously, and all that stuff. So
that's awesome.
At 24, opening up your own business, that's pretty impressive to say. How was the funding like, or how did like the financing coming apart? Did you just
so her being also like involved with the financial side, like we had the right information too, so it wasn't, there was other places that we could have gotten, but I thought long term, like, man, it has to be in a good location, especially for a barbershop. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, like parking and location and stuff like that. I don't want to be moving.
I think parking is one of the biggest ones. My dad always used to say, like, the number one thing you look at when you go to look for like a retail spot or something or an office is like how good's that parking?
Yeah, the parking,
obviously he was in restaurants, so it's even more, but parking is always big.
Right, yeah, that's a tough business too, the restaurant business, but. That those were certain things, but I mean, just saving and being ready to make that commitment, like the way I see it, at least for a barbershop, bro, like if you can't pay the rent on your own every month, then just don't open it yet, so that's like the number one thing I think, so I already knew I was doing that, and then the funds were there to open it and then to put the down payment to get it. So just the down payment alone is like $5,000, and then you get the chairs. How many chairs do you want? They're like $1,000 each, we started with 6, so you're already 10 in. Easily, right? And this is with no stations, so then boom, there goes that. So I mean, I think like ballpark, maybe like at least for anybody that get started is like $30,000 at least,
to open up their own shop.
Yeah, not to mention that you probably still got to do stuff that I learned down the line, like the branding, and the way I picked the name wasn't just for it to like fade away in like a year, you know. Right. It needed something that was like timeless.
Talk about that process, like, because I think branding is one of the biggest things right now that a lot of people are trying to do, build their own personal brand, build their, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Like, how was that process of coming up with your name, with your brand, and then obviously, I mean, you just started becoming a full entrepreneur, which we'll get into, but how was the process of maybe for somebody a Latino or really anybody that's really trying to build their personal brand?
I think I mean, personal branding is the most important thing now. I think no matter what, I think if you're able to think like a big corporation, people are gonna treat you like that too, you know. So like that's the approach all the time. So I said, man, this has got to be nice. And it took me like 3 months to even come up with the whole entire concept. Like, okay, what I want it to be, it has to represent me. It's like, you know, the ampersand, which is the and in between sharp and dapper, was really like bridging both worlds. So like, you know, you want to feel dapper after your cut, but you know, you still want to be on point, kind of like which at the time was more, there was a lot more like chop shops, which was just more like urban, more, you know, sharp lineups only. But I wanted to introduce something new to the city. And it's not like it was the newest thing in the world, but it was new to my city at least. So I knew that we already had that advantage. And then just hiring the right person to bring the vision in life too, bro. I think sometimes people want to, you know, go the cheaper route and you pay over time when you could have just paid, let's say in this case, you know, I paid this guy at the time maybe like $1,200 for that branding. And I could have paid maybe $300, but it wouldn't have been the same. Yeah. You know, so I think just doing the right thing first and once, you know what I mean? Because
my mom always used to say, don't work twice. Just get it done right the first time. It might take a little bit longer, but you're not going to have to work double.
I mean, you got to be happy with it at the end of the day too, you know? And I, you know, I like all my stuff. If you look at it, it's all cohesive too. So it's all minimalistic and clean, you know
I love that brand too, bro.
You know, and people go into the shop, bro, and they're like, man, how long has it been here? They still think we're like a hole in the wall. Because the funny story is I don't have an actual sign outside, but the shop's booming inside. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. It's like a hole in the wall, like a restaurant you find, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, but, you know, I think that says a lot because, you know, if you go into a shop and there's people waiting and all the chairs are full and everybody's cutting and everybody is in uniform and everything looks the same. I mean, it looks, you know, like I said, you know, you got to think like a bigger, you know, company. You got to act like it too. Yeah. You know, so I think that's it is definitely very important.
On the question with the branding, I know you talked about like you paid a little extra instead of going the $300 route. How do you choose like who to partner with in terms of like fitting your vision?
I think you gotta just get somebody that actually you guys have to see eye to eye too. Of like they have to understand, bro. I mean, with me, I'm a little particular, and people might say I'm picky, but I know when shit feels right, you know. And now, thankfully, I've actually worked with the same people over 5 years. You know, I've never really switched up like that. So I'm a very loyal person with my relationships, especially when it comes to business, because we already work, you know, on the same level. I think it's just finding people. You know, you got to go through, you know, that trial and error.
You got to go through the bad hires.
You do.
I mean, you're gonna hire and fire. You know, I think it's Grant Cardone that says, you know, hire slow but fire fast.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another thing too, bro. I mean, just having people under you. You know, I don't want to say that they're employees because everybody's, you know, an independent contractor technically in the shop, but knowing when to let people go too, you know, that's like a whole nother thing.
Yeah, it's that management role then too, right?
What about like the culture? Because culture is really big too when you're building a brand, you're building a team of any sort, right?
Right.
Like I'm here, I'm building a brand, I'm building a team as well. So like my question to you is like, are you guys having like weekly meetings? Are you guys having like, because I know it's a little bit different, right? Because you guys are all independent contractors, but like, how do you keep that culture kind of running in a shop?
Well, even like you were saying, like hire slow but fire fast. I guess like the hiring slow part is part of it because I don't just pick anybody because I could have my chairs filled quickly, but I really try to see. You know, I like to really just base it off certain things. So the first thing is mindset. Like I need somebody that has that mental edge over most people. Yeah. And, you know, at the end of the day, like all of the 11 guys that I have now they're hired for a reason that's beyond their craft itself, you know? So that's already part of it. So I'm bringing like-minded people into one space. You know, my contract right off the bat tells you what you're signing up for. So, you know, the mission, like, okay, this is what we're all trying to get to, you know? So that's important. And then, of course, like having them be vulnerable with themselves too, because at the end of the day, especially now that I'm not there, they have to get along. You know, so, you know, putting systems in place is really important, I think. So then that way they have, even though no matter what, bro, as a leader, you're going to need to kind of give them direction, you know? So I think if over time you can find systems that you can put in place and then that way things start to become kind of automated, you're able to expand, you know?
So talking about systems, right? What type of systems do you guys have? Not only just in the barbershop, but also like the other businesses that you have, because running an apparel company, I mean, I know that game a little bit. That's definitely a interesting type of business too.
So I mean, systems are important. I think procedures too is maybe another branch of that. So like for a barbershop for sure. I think the system is the contract. Like they know the guidelines of what they gotta like live up to. As far as the procedures, it's just stuff that actually goes in day in, day out in the shop. So like, for example, in a barbershop, it's like I have an open and close checklist, and up until I did that, it was always a problem. And I just realized that I kept nagging at people for stuff that in reality, I wasn't really making any changes to either, like what am I doing? So a lot of times I hold myself accountable first before anything, because it starts with you, you are the business owner. So you gotta hold yourself up to that. So I put that in, and then now basically every single day, the last person, because they do get the keys to the shop, and I let them know like this is still a privilege, bro, because not everybody just gives you a key to the building, So I'm like, you have this, but you got to do this, if you're the last one here, you got to check these things off, so then that way the next day, the person that comes in the morning picks up after that. So it revolves, and then that way they have that, and then plus you teach them a lot of like manager skills too, because eventually, assuming that they eventually want their own business, these are things that they got to practice now.
I think I like what you're doing there, because I feel like one of the things is like, how do you give someone the pride of ownership? So they take pride in where they work, and they want to clean up after themselves. And that was actually a question I was going to ask you, but you kind of answered it already, saying it's kind of like prepping themselves to become business owners themselves.
And it goes back to the whole thinking big thing, where it's like, I know we're not there yet, but we're working towards that, like, and a lot of times people, they aim so high, but they're not doing any steps to get there,
It's like the atomic habits. Like it's the habits you build now.
Yeah, bro. I mean,
you keep stacking them too.
It's the simplest fucking thing. I mean, as far as like even just like taking out the trash, bro. And sometimes even those guys that have been with you for a while, are they setting an example for the next ones up, So like eventually making those people, it's really like the student becoming the teacher concept, So I mean, my shop isn't the easiest.
Bro. Those habits compound too. Compounding is so big.
It is. I mean, even with the shop, like I don't have the cheapest rent in the city, but I also don't. It's not the easiest place either, because you're gonna have that pressure to grow. But isn't that what you want? And a lot of times people, they think they want something until they have to do it. So like it's just
true.
It's just putting your foot on their neck a little bit. But that's what I mean. It's not easy to grow, bro. And I think people try to find loopholes. They want to start in the middle, but there's so many steps in the beginning that you're going to need over time. Maybe you don't have to do that later, but when you do it, I'm sure you've been through certain steps where you're like, man, I remember I used to do this all the time,
Think about it all the time.
Like even me, I go back once a month and I do cut a full day. And, it's not necessarily for the money, but funny story is like when I go though for the day, if we want to speak like numbers wise, I make the rent for that month in that day. So in reality, I do have 12 barbers. I'm just one of them, But what I do is I try to set the tone for the shop, and it is a different vibe. But also let them know like, yo, even though I don't do this, I can still come in and outwork you.
You brought up something that I actually want to ask you about, bro. You brought up something I want to ask you about too. Is like, you say you go back for a day and just cut, right? And I know some barbers, even a lot of personal trainers, I used to be in the fitness industry and stuff like that. They undervalue themselves. I know some barbers that still charge like $5 a haircut.
That's crazy.
And they've been barbering for like 2-3 years. And I'm like, bro, like, yeah, you got like a bunch of people and you got really good work. Talk about, because what's the average haircut with you, right?
I started 100.
Started 100.
And that started here. I think when I left Stockton, like maybe 3 years ago, it was at 60 the most. 60, maybe. It depends. Like the base haircut started at 60. But when I got here, the base was 100.
So it's like knowing your value.
But then now when I go back, since I left, there's a void there now. So my value actually went up.
For you personally?
So now like my clients are like, damn, I missed this work. And the consistency, now they wait a month, some of these guys. So literally I have the same rotation once a month when I go back, and they're willing to wait. So like I said, like I transitioned that price point to a place where they say you can't charge that much.
Yeah. And it's like some people don't, like I tell some of my friends where it's like, bro, you get cut up by XYZ, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's also like a relationship and a bond that you build. It's so dope to be able to build a relationship with your barber.
Exactly. It's more than that. I mean, you're getting a therapist, you're getting somebody that you could be vulnerable with. Potentially there could be opportunities depending on what the person's doing, So a lot of the times, like with me, it's a lot deeper than, just imagine this right now, but if you were getting faded.
Yeah.
That's solid.
So that's what you're getting, you're getting that. And, I think it depends. I think a lot of people feel a little self-doubt just because maybe they're not actually putting in the work to improve too. So again, like, how many classes are you taking, or when's the last time you invested in your tools? You know, do you have the right infrastructure for like your service list? I mean, less is more, bro. I mean, I don't like, my prices are very simple. I really like the in and out concept where it's just like three things.
Yeah, a couple things, yeah.
You know, and it's like, if you put the one in the middle at that right spot, you're either going to most likely get either a regular one or the best one. So my minimum is 100, but most of the time I do the 150 because they say, well, fuck it, for $25 more, I'm just going to get the deluxe if I'm already paying over 100. So instead of it being like, I charge for eyebrows, for a design, for this, it's like, I'm just going to pick the haircut because all this stuff is confusing me.
That's kind of a big thing that people go through is like, should I do more or should I just perfect the craft that I'm doing now?
Right.
And hone in on it.
Right.
Kind of going like an inch wide, mile deep, or a mile wide.
Right. You know, it's just like anything. I mean, sometimes people don't want to do all of the stuff that requires a full service, but you know, me, you know, the deluxe started where it's like, okay, you're going to get a haircut, you're going to get a shave, depending, like, even if you don't have a lot of facial hair, you're still going to get a shave of some sort, hot towel. And then we're going to do like, we're going to exfoliate your skin, like a skincare system pretty much. And then, that's like the deluxe service, you know, it's like almost like you're getting pampered, a shampoo wash, of course. But
and then you throw your product in there too, right?
Right.
So you're
it's
using
like,
your product
it's
while
like
you're cutting.
like we're pretty much like showing you how to style your hair.